All righty, it is 1 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the November 5, 2024 Landmark Preservation Commission meeting. I am calling the meeting to order. It's 1 o'clock. The very first thing that we do is at our meetings is introduce ourselves, the commission. And I will go first. My name is Julie Johnson. I am a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated by the community at large. Nick, can you start?
Yep, I'm Nick Fusianis. I'm an architect and developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant nominated by the community.
Eric Sykes, I'm an architect nominated by History Colorado.
Hi, I'm George Dennis, retired law enforcement nominated by History Colorado.
My name is Chris McGinnis. I'm a forensic architect, and I was nominated by the mayor's office.
I'm Rusty Brown, an architect, was nominated by AIA.
I'm Emily Hazen, a designer and preservationist nominated by City Planning.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Hey, thanks everybody. The first thing that we've got on our agenda are the meeting records for approval for October 15 of 2024. Does anybody have any comments, any corrections to said minutes? All right, do I hear a motion to approve said minutes?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the meeting record for October 15th, 2024.
Okay, great. Thanks, Erica. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Nick has seconded it. All in favor of aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the meeting records have been approved as presented. Thank you very much, staff. All right, before we get going, just for you all joining us virtually, some audio tips. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download, oh, I should be good. Encourage you to download Zoom, thank you, on your laptop, desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. You can click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression. You can test your speaker and microphone, adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters joining us virtually, when it is your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you can click on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options. Select your speaker and microphone devices. Test your microphone and speakers, adjust their maximum output volumes. And if you still have audio challenges, you can always switch to your phone for audio. All righty. Next, we have a public comment period at the beginning of every LPC meeting. Members of the public have up to 2 minutes each for comments about historic preservation in general. These are not specific to any of the projects that we'll be hearing later in the meeting. It's just historic preservation in Denver in general. If you wish to make a comment about historic preservation in general here in person, just raise your hand and we'll have you come sit here and make your comment, and you'll have 2 minutes to do so. If you are joining us virtually to speak, you can click the hand raise button in Zoom. You can dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if you're joining by phone, or you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number if you're having difficulty with either hand raise option. All right, is there anybody here in person that would like to make a comment on historic preservation in general? I don't see any hands raised. Taylor, do we have anybody joining us virtually that has a hand raised? I see one. Hello there. Hello. Hi, yeah. So this is the portion of the meeting for a comment on historic preservation in general, not related to any projects. Is that your comment?
No, I'm new to a big Zoom like this, and I want to add comments on my own landmark designation, but not in general.
Okay, that's great. Then when we get to that particular case, you can make your comment then. This is for historic preservation in general, but now you know how it works, so good for you. Thank you. So yeah, we'll hear from you in a minute. Is there anybody else that wanted to make a comment? Doesn't look like it. All right, okay, then we're moving beyond the public comment period. Then let's go on to the consent agenda. These are routine design review items that are recommended for the commission approval without discussion. Applicants with items passed on the consent agenda should coordinate separately with the landmark preservation staff to receive a certificate of appropriateness. There is no public comment for consent agenda items. Chair will announce the consent agenda by address. I will ask if commissioners desire to remove any items from the consent agenda, and then that item would be moved to the design review agenda. Commission members can announce any ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest of any of these items. The commission will make a motion and vote, and if your project is approved on consent, you may leave the meeting. You can also stay, but you may leave the meeting. All right, the consent agenda is as follows. 2024-COA-816 at 100 West Colfax Avenue, Voorhees Memorial, is that how it's pronounced? Thank you. 2024-COA-833 at 2801 Curtis Street. 2024-TAXC-015 at 245 West Second Avenue. 2024-TAXC-013 at 715 Lafayette Street. Number 5 is 2024-TAXC-014 at 611 Colorado Boulevard. Number 6 is 2024-TAXC at 005, 1928 East 14th Avenue. Number 7 is 2024-TAXC-007 at 2434 Grove Street. And the last one is 2024-TAXC-010 at 1070 Mariposa Street. All right, commissioners, anybody have any concerns? You want to take something off of the consent agenda? Larry?
I'd actually like us to discuss the Voorhees Memorial.
Okay, then let's take that off. And we will look at that during the design review.
I also just had a quick question on the agenda. The last item is number 2024, but on our printed it's 2022, and I know it's a revised one, so just
Oh.
making sure what the correct number is, or does it matter?
That should be 2022.
Okay.
Because it's a revision of the initial application from 2022.
And I also had a question about the Mariposa Street, the total credit that was being.
Yes, there was, in the staff report, there was an error. It listed the total amount twice, and the second line should be the actual tax credit amount should be $7,007.18. But since this is the part 1, that's the estimate, and I will be sure that that gets corrected. The estimated tax credit amount will be corrected in the part 2 when we get the final amount.
All right, commissioners, any ex parte or conflicts of interest that you need to announce? All right, then, so we're taking the Voorhees Memorial and putting that in the design review. That leaves the rest of the consent agenda for approval. Do I hear a motion from the commissioners to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I motion to approve the consent agenda as written, except for item number 1.
Excellent. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Larry has seconded. He won this time, Joe, sorry. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Anybody here for the consent agenda, then they are welcome to leave. Also welcome to stay. So,
We'll do the public hearings.
yeah,
first,
the public
and then
hearings
we'll-
first. Okay, the first thing we need to do, the chair will announce the public hearing agenda by address. Commission members can announce any ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest. Staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation, and that is limited to 10 minutes. The commissioners can question staff. The applicant presentation is limited to 10 minutes. Commissioners may question the applicant. Public comment period is 3 minutes per person, and if you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you're not part of that applicant team, please click the hand raise button. For those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you are having difficulty with either hand raise option, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff will clarify, commission will deliberate, and the commission will make a motion and vote. All right, so the first the first item is 2024-EH-001 at 1600 East Colfax. This is not a public hearing for this particular case. We are simply setting the public hearing date for December 3rd. Do I hear a motion from the commission?
I'll make the motion. Madam Chair, I move to set a public hearing for 1600 East Colfax on December 3rd, 2024.
Great. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, George. All in favor of
Aye.
setting the December 3rd? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, great. Then we will move on to the second hearing, which is 2024-EH-002. It's 1618 East Colfax Avenue in Lyman. And this is the same case as the first. We are simply setting the public hearing date. We are not having public comment on this option, on this case today. The suggested motion is to have the date on December 3rd. Do I hear a commission member would like to make a motion?
I'll do it again. I move to set a public hearing for 1618 East Colfax Avenue on December 3rd, 2024.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Erica has seconded. Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? All right, then we will see both of those items for public hearing on our meeting of December 3rd. All right, now I do need to call an official public hearing in order right now for 2024 L-004 at 4450 North Tennyson Street. This is an individual landmark designation, and our staff person is Abby Chrisman. Hi, Abby.
Hi. I'm ready whenever you are, Brittany.
Can you turn your camera on?
Oh, yes, sorry. The things you forget when you have it for a little while. Okay, so this is a designation application for the Curry Dryer Cottage, which is at 4450 Tennyson Street. And it's kind of a unique property. It is an alley house that is located at the rear of the lot on the alley. So you see two properties here. They're both were built by Curry, but the one on the left is not part of the designation application. The designation application is just for the one there to the rear, as well as the lawn in front of that property. Next. So it is located in Council District 1 in the Berkeley Regis neighborhood. And the owner and applicant is Daphne Salon, Casa Felices LLC. And the red arrow there is showing you the location on Tennyson Street. Next. So here is the proposed boundary. So as you can see, it is only the alley house that is indicated with the red dashed line that is included in the boundary. So the bungalow that is located to the north, it is historically associated with this property, but the ownership was split. So the bungalow to the north now has a separate ownership than the alley house to the both to the rear and to the south. 4450 is now separately owned. So there's two distinct lots there. So it is just the lot that contains 4450 that is proposed for designation. Next. Next, so just a brief overview, since I know we do have some newer commissioners for our landmark process. So the landmark designation process was set up under our 1967 Landmark Preservation Ordinance. Part of the purpose to designate, preserve, and protect our historic structures. Next. So map of our individual landmarks and our historic districts. There to give you a sense, so this is being proposed as an individual landmark. Next. So when properties are designated, they are designated as is. So there are no required improvements, no required review, design review to start, but then once a property is designated, any work proposed in the future on the exterior would come forward to you then under the design review process. For you to preserve the historic character, and it would be following our general design guidelines. And as you know, demolition of historic properties are strongly discouraged, so any future demolition application would have to be reviewed and approved by the Landmark Preservation Commission. Next. So in order to be eligible as an individual landmark, a property must be either more than 30 years old or of exceptional importance. It needs to meet at least 3 of our 10 designation criteria. It needs to maintain its integrity, and the commission needs to consider the historic context of the structure in its review. Next. So this property is the Curry Dreyer Cottage. So the property has been named for the 2 primary families that were associated with the construction and development of the property. So first off, the Currys. So Arthur Wellington Curry built the structure in 1909. He was a Canadian immigrant whose profession was a carpenter. So he was skilled as a builder. He bought this lot and then built this small alley cottage first, and the family then lived in the alley cottage while he was then constructing the adjacent brick bungalow. And this was pretty common for alley houses. Often alley houses were constructed as starter homes. So kind of that was their starter home. They built the alley house first, lived there while he built the brick bungalow, and then the family moved into the brick bungalow and converted the cottage into rental housing. Unfortunately, Mary Curry died in 1912, and at this point, Arthur decided to leave Denver. He moved to California, and so the Currys were responsible for creating the property, but did not live there that long since Arthur decided to leave. And so at that point, they decided to sell the property. So next, so the property was sold to the Dryers. And the Dreyer family owned the property from 1913 all the way to 1992. So a very long association with the property. So Dryers, Joseph and Josephine Dreyer bought the bungalow and the cottage in 1913. And they lived in the bungalow and continued using the cottage as a rental property. Joseph was an immigrant from Czechoslovakia, coming with his family as a child. Josephine's heritage was also from Bohemia. Her parents had immigrated to the US. Both of them were Catholic and were very active in the nearby Holy Family Parish. They moved to Denver, originally from Chicago in 1906, and Joseph established the Swanwick, Miles, and Dreyer Printing Company, and that was his profession, primary profession throughout his life was as a printer. And that, historic photo, that was Joseph and Josephine in front of the brick bungalow. Sorry. So that is them in front of the brick bungalow. Sorry, next slide. So the Dryers then rented out 4450 Tennyson to a variety of tenants, included immigrants, non-Protestants, widows, laborers, young families, seniors. So a diverse group of tenants. And they also continue to adhere to their Catholic faith very closely, despite a lot of intimidation during the 19-teens and 20s due to the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in Colorado, who were particularly focused on anti-Catholic sentiment, including nearby threats of violence with the burning of crosses at Regis College and at St. Dominic's Church. So somewhat remarkable that as a Catholic family that were themselves kind of focus of intimidation, they continued to rent to a very broad segment of population, many of whom would also have been the focus of intimidation tactics by the Ku Klux Klan. So Klan members were living on this block at the same time that the Dryers rented their cottage in 1918 to Nathan Ehrenberg, who was a Russian Jewish immigrant who was on the Socialist Party ticket as a state senator in 1918. So just an example of some of the kind of diverse tenants that they rented to. And somewhat remarkable there too, their son was in World War I. They were kind of very patriotic and supportive of the war effort. At the same time, they were renting to a socialist candidate who was against the war. So next slide. So 4450 Tennyson is being designated or suggested for designation under 4 criteria. So we have criterion A, the historic development of the city, criterion C, for visible characteristics of an architectural style or type, then criterion G, for the understanding of the urban environment through physical characteristics or rarity, and then finally H, for its cultural understanding of how the site was used by past generations. So I'll go through each of those. Next slide. So under criterion A, the property is being proposed for designation for its direct association with the historic development of the Tennyson corridor and the larger Berkeley neighborhood. So this area was annexed to Denver in 1902, and this cottage was built in 1909. So it's really part of that kind of growth and development just following the annexation to Denver. This was a middle and working class residential area. And particularly as it developed along a streetcar line. So it was kind of convenient housing that people could, not as expensive as some other neighborhoods in Denver, but one where they could easily access work through the streetcar line. So the map there, the green shows the streetcar line. So the orange arrow shows the location of the cottage. So you can see right on the kind of main Tennyson streetcar line. And while typically we wouldn't think of, kind of a single small cottage being able to represent the entire history of the development of a corridor, there is not much historic left on the Tennyson corridor. So this really is a very rare surviving resource of this period of development of the Tennyson corridor. So in this case, we really do have kind of this one cottage that tells the story of how this corridor developed as this middle and working class residential area. Next slide. So the next criterion C. So embodying the distinctive characteristics of an architectural type, the alley house. So alley houses, generally unpretentious, small frame, one-story dwellings set back from the street, located on the alley. So as you can see here, shot from the street and then also from the alley. This alley houses really a form of affordable urban housing. So sometimes starter homes, often then once a family constructed a more permanent residence to the front, like 4450 Tennyson, these became rental housing. So it's a form of being able to increase urban density by having these kind of 2 homes on a lot. And you find them particularly in denser areas, on transportation routes, things like the streetcar, and close to business areas and shops. Next. So then next, criterion G. So being significant for the way it helps with our understanding of the urban environment as a rare example of an early 20th century alley house. So alley house is a type previously pretty common in Berkeley, as well as some of other nearby areas, Potter Highland. And the alley house is really early form of affordable housing that provided housing to really diverse groups, often immigrants, others, kind of just arriving in the city and needing rental housing before they got established. And due to the redevelopment of Tennyson, it is also really a rare example of a single family residence. There's very few single family residences, particularly right along Tennyson. It's really rare example of single family residence that still has an intact front lawn. So the map here, these square, the green square indicates the location, 4450 Tennyson. And this is just looking at that kind of, 6-block area here on the 1929 Sanborn. And I have highlighted in red all the other alley houses that were present just in this kind of immediate area in 1929 to show that alley houses were once much more common in this neighborhood. Next. And then finally, the Curry Dreyer Cottage is being proposed for designation under criterion H for a way of providing cultural understanding of how the site was used by past generations. So it really represents the multicultural history of the Tennyson corridor. So at the time it was built, more than 10% of the neighborhood residents were immigrants. And it was really, a lot of those immigrants were living, particularly when they first arrived, in rental housing. If they were successful, they were able then to, become, as in this case, immigrants started out building this, then, were able to have more permanent dwelling, and then they, immigrants were renting this out. So it really represents that period of kind of diverse, middle working class housing that really welcomed a large range, group of immigrants to the neighborhood. It also directly represents the Dreyer's welcoming attitude towards diversity and diverse residents. That even during an era in Denver when nativist and Ku Klux Klan activity, was really high and were really, in opposition, they accepted people of anyone to diverse backgrounds to rent the cottage. So the table here shows some of those who rented. You have Germans, Swedish, Jewish, Russian, Italian, Latina. So kind of a range of people who were living here. Next slide. So in addition to meeting those criteria, also have to look at the integrity of the property. So the little cottage really, retains pretty remarkable integrity. The area around it has changed significantly, but this cottage has really changed amazingly little. So it is in its original location. For setting and feeling, said the larger neighborhood has really changed, but the immediate is really intact. It still retains its front lawn. It still retains its relationship to the street, its relationship to the alley. And really it's those broader changes that really emphasize how rare this has now become. For design, there's no significant alterations or additions. For materials, really remarkable that it retains its original wood siding. As we know, Denver mainly, town of building in brick, so we don't have that many historic wood framed and sided buildings left. There have been some windows replaced and the porch railing was replaced, but other than that, really no significant alterations. For workmanship, you can still see a lot of those details that Curry constructed. You still have the original dental frieze on the porch. You have things like the original door, distinctive windows. And then finally, integrity of association, since it has really, continued throughout this, long period as rental housing. Next. So it is being proposed with a period of significance from 1909 all the way up through 1992. This is to take it through the original construction, all the way by Curry, all the way up through the time where the Dreyer family owned the property. And throughout this time, it continued its use as an affordable urban rental property. Next. So summarize, so things we're looking at for landmark designation. Is it over 30 years of age? Does it meet at least 3 criteria? Sorry, I just realized I did not update the criteria there, but in this case, it is A, for a direct association with the development of the neighborhood, C, as an alley house, G, for understanding of the urban environment, and then H, for looking at really cultural history of the site. So LPC should also consider the historic context and whether or not it retains integrity. And so there, then we have the recommended motion. So for designations, if the commission approves it or recommends it, then it is going to city council. So the commission doesn't have the final say on designation. A recommendation today is a recommendation to city council that they should approve it. So are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for him? No? Okay, great. Abby, thank you very much.
Okay, and then I believe we have the owner is on Zoom. We also have the preparers of the application, and I think some other family here as well.
Okay, great. Oh, good, welcome. All right. So who's going to speak? Daphne was talking to us earlier. Would you like to come and have a seat here at the table?
Oh, Daphne's gonna do.
Daphne's gonna do that for you. Okay, all right.
We'll talk too, but you want us to?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be terrific. Thank you.
And you get a total of 10 minutes total for all the applicants' family members.
Daphne, are you there?
I am here. I did unmute.
That's great. Okay, cool. All right. So you've got 10 minutes. It looks like 3 of you wish to speak, which is great. You'll have 10 minutes to tell us about your project, and please begin, when you start talking, please begin with your name and your address, please. Anytime, you can start anytime now.
Oh, okay. So yes, I'm Daphne, and I had the privilege to purchase the house in 2006. And at the time I was using it for my accounting office. And a couple years later, I did move my accounting office to my home, and the little house, we call him Little Tenny, he's been a single family rental in the area ever since that time. I think that it's provided and continues to provide a rare, every year or month, it seems now, this house becomes a more and more unique, rare opportunity for anyone who wants to live in this high density urban environment to actually find a single family home with all the attributes of a home. It has a porch, a back porch, a backyard, a front yard, shade trees, and it's a commodity that we just don't have any more of in Denver. And you can see from the photo, there's a development on both sides, and my little cottage seems to be shrinking. We like to talk about him and say he's small but mighty. He has a tremendous amount to offer to the neighborhood. He's been a great place for people to live. I'm really thrilled that Justin's going on his 5th year there with his dog. He loves the house. And without a house like this, he's told me, he goes, I really don't know where I'd go with my dog. And he works remotely. He can live pretty much anywhere. And he said, you know, this is my home. I'm camped out here with Bailey and I love it. And I can't imagine where I would go. I will continue to offer the house up as a single family residence to people. There has been a tremendous amount of change around the house, across the street and across the alley. Across the alley, we have yet, I think, 1 or 2 more scrape offs that my tenant told me about on Stewart Street. Those were also really cute examples of single family homes that the owners actually occupied. They weren't rentals. And those were sold to investors, and now they've perished, and they're getting ready to build larger, more modern homes on those spaces. I would like to think that 1992 doesn't end the significance of this little cottage. And he's still doing what he's always done for people all the years he's been in existence. A safe, wonderful place for people to live who can't afford a home of their own, or a place to live until they afford a home of their own. A lot of people who've lived in this house have gone on to buy their own homes in other areas of Denver. I'm really excited that the house is being considered as a landmark. I think it is historically relevant. I think it's relative to Berkeley and the neighborhood. So I appreciate the time and effort that's been put in to get this project so far. It's my house, but it's everybody else's project. I'm just happen to be the owner.
Great, Daphne, thank you very much. All right, did you wanna, are you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
My name is Tom Simmons. I'm one of the preparers of the nomination and a board member of Historic Berkeley Regis. The Curry Dreyer Cottage is an excellent example of an alley house building type in terms of function, location, design, scale, materials, and its subordinate relationship to the primary house. Alley houses were built throughout the nation, especially in larger eastern cities like Philadelphia, St. Louis, Washington, and Baltimore, and mainly as a means of increasing the housing stock on existing urban land. The dwelling type increased urban density, facilitated access to transit, and provided a less costly housing option. Historic alley houses now comprise a rare resource type, especially in the Berkeley neighborhood. In the area we examined in Berkeley, I think it was about an 18 square block area, only 16% of alley houses that were present in 1930 on Sanborn maps are still standing. Given the citywide development trends, we believe that a similar pattern holds for comparable residential areas throughout Denver. The cottage is also notable for its frame construction, which is a rare characteristic for existing individual Denver landmarks. Alley houses also provide insights into the social and cultural lifeways of earlier generations. Sometimes in their initial construction, as Abby noted, they provided housing for the owner's family, while the larger and more substantial dwelling was built on the parcel. Once the larger house was completed, the alley house supplied extra income for the owners, as well as, importantly, providing affordable shelter for less affluent members of society. And Abby went through the various types of people that lived in the Curry Dreyer Cottage. Finally, the Curry Dreyer Cottage illustrates the early development of the Berkeley neighborhood when Tennyson Street primarily displayed single-family residences. The presence of a streetcar line down Tennyson facilitated access to downtown Denver and made it attractive for the construction of housing. Owners who built alley houses could be confident that a ready supply of renters using mass transit would be available. And city director research confirms the cottage was seldom vacant. Today, the cottage with its grassy setback from the street contrasts with the subsequent development of Tennyson into a commercial and multifamily corridor and provides a glimpse of that early history of the street. The movement to permit and encourage the construction of accessory dwelling units today is in essence an effort to recreate what evolved organically in the late 19th and early 20th century, as evidenced by the Curry Dreyer Cottage. It's important that we recognize the role that these more modest but necessary dwellings played in the history of Denver by designating this resource as a Denver landmark.
Hi, I'm Laurie Simmons, and I'm one of the preparers of the nomination. I'm also a co-president with Murray Edgar of Historic Berkeley Regis. As you are aware, the Berkeley Regis neighborhood has suffered some of the most extensive loss of historic resources of any sector in the city, and especially along Tennyson Street, which is almost unrecognizable from a few years ago. Sometimes when you're struggling, as we are, to preserve the character of our neighborhood, you triage by sort of focusing on the largest, most flamboyant properties, or the ones you've heard about for a long time. But in 2023, a Westward article by Benito Kelty featured the Curry Dreyer Cottage and its owner, Daphne Salone, who said she wanted to secure its preservation by obtaining landmark designation. And Historic Berkeley Regis is pleased to assist Daphne in achieving this goal. For us, the application, the research that we did for the application reinforced our understanding that seemingly more modest buildings in our neighborhood can be little jewel boxes of information and architecture that represent several important aspects of our past. So we strongly urge you to forward this application to City Council, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicants?
I have one question, and this is really just out of curiosity, whether it had, I understand it's a different owner, but the bungalow that was originally associated with the Alley House, was there any sort of communication with that owner about perhaps combining to make designation for the two?
The other property to the north is owned by a local real estate firm. And I would like, if Daphne has any insights into that, I think that's a more appropriate question for her.
Sure, yeah.
Daphne, are you still there?
I am here.
Okay, great. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. No, I was actually quite concerned that they might oppose this, so I remained very silent on the topic and did not approach them. I think it's extremely appropriate to consider this as a package, but my fear that they would try to stop me because it might impair their ability to destroy their own property or redevelop their own half of the lot. I was extremely fearful that they would have the resources to stop me from gaining this landmark preservation. And I think together as a package, it's a phenomenal idea. I had no idea that when you look at my little cottage, it's the mommy house and their house is the baby house. This family conceived of creating this tiny little house to live in while they built that exquisite brick home, and it is exquisite. I've only gotten to be inside of it one time, but the features and the stained glass and the wood and the carvings, I mean, this family really had a total vision for what they wanted their Colorado and Denver lifestyle to be. Both houses, I think, are remarkable, but because of my own personal fear, maybe I should have, I hadn't considered it, but I was so fearful of the power a real estate developer might have to interfere with what I wanted for my home.
Yeah, thank you, I understand.
All right, commissioners, any other questions for the applicants? Okay, great. I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much. All right, so now we will look for public comments. If you're here in person, we'll get to you first, and then just, raise your hand. If you're joining us virtually, if you're joining by phone, you can dial *9 on your phone keypad to raise your hand, or email landmark@denvergov.org with your name, phone number, and if you're joining by computer, of course, you can click on the hand raise function. You will have 3 minutes to provide your comment, and we will time that comment for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Is there anybody here that wishes to? Could you please have a seat and begin with your name and address, please?
My name is Marie Gidritis Edgar, and I live at 3532 West 39th Avenue, 8 blocks from Little Tangle. I'm the co-president of Historic Berkeley Regis, and I'm reading from a letter of support that we have sent to the commission. We are a nonprofit neighborhood historic preservation organization founded in 2016 and dedicated to initiating and supporting efforts to study, understand, acknowledge, and preserve historic resources in our community. HBR strongly and enthusiastically supports the Denver Landmark application for the Curry Dreyer Cottage. The cottage is such a rare remaining example of the alley house type, once frequently built in our neighborhood to provide affordable housing for diverse residents. The high quality of the construction and preservation of materials utilized in the cottage and the thoughtfulness of its design make it an outstanding example of this type. The associated landscape is notable within the neighborhood for standing out among the newer buildings with its long setback from Tennyson Street and its inclusion of traditional trees and grass lawn that cause people today to mistake it for a small park. The history of the house is notable for being occupied by people with diverse origins, religious beliefs, occupations, cultures, and family types. It has provided a home for young families who recently arrived in the United States and elders approaching the end of their lives. It has served as a location of safety and security during times of division and violence among differing groups of people. At the same time, it has been associated with the long history of the development and growth of Tennyson Street as Berkeley's principal commercial thoroughfare and its streetcar commercial district, which in the past included many single-family homes. A single family, the Dryers, owned the house and rented it to others from 1912 to 1979. Historic Berkeley Regis is pleased that Denver recognizes and aids in the preservation of properties important to the neighborhoods and the city through the designation of historic landmarks. We congratulate property owner Daphne Salone for submitting the application. The historic treasures remaining in our neighborhood contribute to a richer quality of life for all of us.
Right at 3 minutes. Well done. All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here in person that would like to make a comment? Doesn't look like it. Do we have anyone virtually, Taylor, that would like to join us?
No hands raised.
Oh, there's one.
Sorry, I think I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
You'll have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please start with your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Justin Flaxbart and my address is the house in question. I am Daphne's current tenant here at Little Tenny on 44.
Oh, the guy with the dog.
Yeah, and Bailey is walking around. She doesn't know what's going on, so I apologize if she joins the conversation as well. But I just wanted to, also strongly say how much I'm in favor of this designation. This house is a little bit of a celebrity. Anytime I'm around the neighborhood, out walking my dog or just conversing with people at the festivals on Tennyson, whenever people find out where I live, they know immediately. I say I live in the little blue house. It's really the only one left around and really is a connection to the history of the neighborhood. And I just wanted to tell one quick little anecdote, if I may. I was out playing with Bailey in the front yard, probably last year, and a gentleman who grew up in the neighborhood on Tennyson Street in the 1970s was here with his Italian wife and hadn't been back to Denver for over 20 years, he told me, and was a little bit astonished at what had happened to the neighborhood and just told me how happy he was that my house was still there, that he remembered it from his childhood, and that was really the only piece left of his childhood that he could find here in this neighborhood. So I just thought that was a really special connection with the former neighborhood resident. And yeah, I don't need my full 3 minutes. That's it from me. But I do love living here. I love the house. I love the yard. I wouldn't want to live in any of these condos. It's really a unique property.
Terrific. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
comment. Okay, it doesn't, I don't see any other hands there. Nobody here. All right, then I will close the public hearing portion and we will go on to conversation by the commissioners. What are your thoughts?
I think the application is incredibly thorough and makes a very compelling argument for how this property meets all these different criteria for the significance of this building. I completely understand the owner's hesitation to reach out to their neighbor. I agree that I think it would be, it would make a lot of sense if could all be together, but I think it also stands alone on its own. So I'm very much in favor of the application.
All right, Erica, thank you.
I'm sorry, that brings up the question is if they did say got designated hypothetically, and then they were approached the neighbors, the other property, and they wanted to designate theirs as well, could you combine the two at that point, or would they have to be always be separated? Do we know the answer to that? Does the staff know, or?
Kara, you're better equipped than.
Yeah, I think that we could they'd be interrelated, and so we could like expand the boundary to combine the two would be one of the likely routes we could go. I mean, they could just do it all on their own, but I think they're so interrelated that you could amend this designation to include that one.
So that is a possibility to amend it to,
Other thoughts, commissioners?
Yep.
George?
I'm very kind of bowled over about the history and the family who lived in the house for so long. And it has been kept in such great condition. Yes, it absolutely meets the criteria. But what struck me the most is that designation would be wonderful recognition to immigrants who are actually able to walk the talk of what it is to be in a country that allows freedoms and welcomes everybody, even at a period when alleged patriotic Americans seem to have forgotten how. So I'm entirely in favor of designation for this house.
Thank you, George.
It's a fitting tribute.
You made me cry, great. Any other comments?
I did just want to add two things. I wanted to express my sincere, following up on George's comment, that I'm thankful to the owner and the applicant team and Historic Regis Berkeley for bringing this forward. I think this is really important. So thank you to everyone for doing it.
Yeah, I love that it's the teeny tiny house. So many times we see big, beautiful houses here and structures here, and it's a teeny tiny house that's getting appreciated. Any other comments, commissioners?
I'm just trying to follow on with that. I like the diversity of scale and economic status and the representation of the Alley House, especially in a time when, ADUs are becoming more prominent.
Yeah, indeed. All right, commissioners, do I hear a motion? Can you put that back up, or do you guys have the motion?
I can make the motion. Just have to.
Okay, Eric.
Hold on. Sorry, my computer froze on me, so. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm saying it correctly, so, and I'm not seeing the motion on the staff report itself.
It's at that very top.
Oh, thank you.
In a different place.
Oh, yep, okay.
Just to confuse things.
Thank you very much. Okay. I move to recommend approval and forward to City Council the landmark designation of 4450 Tennyson Street, application number 2024L-004, based on the landmark ordinance criteria A, C, G, and H, citing as findings of fact for this recommendation the application form, public testimony, and the October 29th staff report.
Erica, thank you. Do I hear a second? Emily has seconded it. Thank you. All in favor of forwarding this to City Council? Aye, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, the next portion of our meeting, thanks, Abby. The next portion of our meeting is the design review. And we have two. Here's the process. I will announce the design review items on the agenda in order by address. Commission members can announce any ex parte contacts and conflicts of interest. The staff will introduce the application and make a recommendation, and that is limited to 10 minutes. Commissioners can question staff. The applicant presentation will also be limited to 10 minutes, and commissioners can question the applicant as well. Public comment period for design review items is 2 minutes per person. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant team, either if you're here in person, you can raise your hand, or if you're joining us virtually, you can raise the little hand raise button on the Zoom program. For those calling via phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're having difficulty with either hand raise option, email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff will clarify if necessary. The commission will deliberate and the commission will make a motion and vote. All right, our first design review item is 2024-COA-816 at 100 West Colfax Avenue, Voorhees Memorial. And I believe our staff person is Brittany.
Okay, our application today is for alterations to the Voorhees Memorial, which was constructed in 1919. It is the north gateway into Civic Center Park. And this is within the Civic Center Park Historic District, which has a period of significance to 1909 to 1979. So here you can see the Voorhees Memorial from Colfax Avenue. And then on the map, it is again, just this northern structure here in the park. So the applicant is proposing to add 2 rooftop access ladders to the structure. The Voorhees Memorial is a triumphal arch with a colonnade extending to the east and west. And the triumphal arch has a total height of 46 feet to the top of the building parapet. And the colonnade has a total height of 34 feet, 8 inches to the top of the colonnade. Currently, to access the roof, workers must climb up an access chase, which is located in the northeast corner of the triumphal arch. So this very small spot right here on the aerial image is that access chase. That is all internal. There is alterations to the access chase to enlarge the opening on the roof. However, that will not be visible from the public right away. So to create safer working environmental conditions for the roof access, anytime workers need to access the lower roofs of the colonnade, they have to drop over 11 feet down from the triumphal arch roof. So they call that the upper roof, down to the colonnade roofs, which are much lower in height. It also requires scaling over the building parapet and the entablature and cornicing details of the triumphal arch. So staff began speaking with the applicants, which is Dottie, on how this project could be achieved. And initially, we really encouraged Dottie to explore an option in which the ladders would have minimal visibility with removable rails, and only the ladder would be the visible portion. However, this was not an achievable design for the railings because there was no place to store the railings. The structural load was not factoring correctly for this type of project. And there was safety and practical concerns with a user carrying removable railings up and down that access chase, which is a very tight space. Specifically the weight of these items going up through that chase. So due to these challenges, it was determined that the access ladders with fixed railings were the best solution, which is what you see proposed before you today. So the proposed ladders will have a platform of 2 feet by 4 feet, and that is again to get over the triumphal arch, and then have these 17-foot tall 9-inch ladder that has 4 attachment points. So the ladder will attach to the roof of the triumphal arch, to the roof of the colonnade, to the back side of the triumphal arch parapet, and then one singular attachment point onto the face of the triumphal arch, just above the cornice detail to help camouflage that element and that attachment detail. The ladders will be painted this alpaca gray to help blend in with the surrounding environment and also color matched as best as possible to the existing stone of the Voorhees Memorial. So the Civic Center Historic District does have its own design standards and guidelines, and each contributing element is specifically dealt with within those design guidelines. And for the Voorhees Memorial, the guidelines talk about maintaining the contributing features, which includes its orientation along the cultural axis, its relationship to the Greek theater, its relationship to downtown, the Allen True memorials, the forecourt on the memorial south side, which I don't have a picture of in my presentation, but it's where the sill pond is, and that is also a contributing feature. And then the Emily Griffith drinking fountain. And they do talk about rehabilitation as well. So no changes will be made to these contributing features, particularly its relationship to the cultural access, which is the north-south pathway through Civic Center Park, its relationship to the Greek theater. No alterations to the Allen True murals will be made, or the forecourt or Emily Griffith drinking fountain are proposed at this time. And the Voorhees Memorial, with many of the elements in Civic Center Park, were recently restored, this particularly in 2010. So we did also look at the general design guidelines for Denver landmark structures and districts. And specifically for this project, we applied guideline 2.25, which talks about preserving the form, materials, and features of an original historic roof and maintaining the perceived line and orientation of the roof as seen from the street. So the physical roof itself is not actually proposed to be altered. And in the future, these ladders could be removed and the roof and the structure would maintain its original historic appearance, and it would not negatively impact the historic fabric. We do understand that it will have a minimal visual impact. However, the applicant has explored all options to provide safety for workers and blend this in with the surrounding environment. So staff are supportive of this alteration to the Voorhees Memorial. And our last guideline talks about not visually overwhelming a historic roof. We do feel that these really are not going to provide that much visual overwhelmingness to the structure. So we are recommending approval of these alterations to the Voorhees Memorial.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brittany? No? Okay, great. Is our applicant here or joining us virtually?
They're here in person
Oh,
and
here in
virtually,
person.
so
Okay,
you-
great.
and then
Do you want to please have a seat?
are you gonna speak Pete, or is?
I'm gonna start off.
Okay. Let me
If
pull
needed,
up.
Michael can chime in.
And Taylor, do you have them moved over?
I will in just a moment if he wants to get started.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, my name is Pete Cates. I'm the project manager for this project with DOTI, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. We are working with our partners at Denver Parks and Recreation to find a solution for roof access to the Voorhees Memorial. We've gone through an extensive design process, brought on an architecture firm, Martin & Martin, to come up with a solution for us for the ladders. We went in with the goal of trying to find a solution that was the least visible from the street. We looked at a lot of different options. Brittany mentioned the removable railings that we contemplated, which we had hoped would be able to be brought up the ladder and then secured into place whenever access had to be made. Unfortunately, structurally, that didn't work. There were structural and safety considerations with a worker carrying those railings up the ladder and then having to secure them in place. So there were really two driving considerations for this project. The first was improving safety of the workers that are required to go up onto the roof of the memorial, do maintenance, do inspections. Currently, and these are mainly Parks and Recreation city workers that fulfill this function. Currently, any worker that goes up on the roof to do, especially going down onto lower roofs, puts themselves at great risk currently because there is no safe way to access the lower roofs from the upper roof. Currently, the procedure is to drop some temporary extension ladders down from the upper roof onto the lower roof in order to get down to the lower roof. However, the worker is basically having to drop a long extension ladder down onto a lower roof, not being able to secure it, not able to secure the feet of the ladder on the lower roof. And so it's a very precarious dance that they do when they're maintaining this structure. OSHA regulations on ladders have significantly become much more strict over time. Obviously, when the memorial was built, safety considerations were pretty minimal at the time. Now ladders have to have fall protection devices on them over a certain height. Platforms have to have railings and safety gates to prevent people from falling inadvertently. So obviously a lot has changed over the 100+ years since the memorial was built. The second consideration here is improving maintenance of the memorial. Currently, it's just difficult for workers to get down onto those lower roofs to do maintenance, to do inspections. And so what we were really trying to do here is just improve the maintenance and longevity of the memorial. We recently had a situation in which a roof drain on one of the lower roofs backed up due to leaves and debris. The roof itself had a lot of standing water on it, eventually caused water to leak into the memorial and down onto the ceiling below and onto one of the columns, causing a lot of damage. And so it's that type of situation that we're really trying to prevent with what we're doing here. That's all we're trying to do here. Is again improve safety and maintenance of the structure. So I'll take any questions anyone has.
Okay, do we have somebody joining us virtually that wanted to?
Is Michael?
We do have Michael Shalona here from Parks and Recreation. I don't know if he has anything he wanted to add.
Michael, if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand and then there you are.
Yeah, there I am. Sorry, it kept remuting and returning off my video. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name's Michael Shalona. I'm with Denver Parks and Recreation. I'm in the planning, design, and construction team, and I'm the facilities program manager. So I oversee the design and construction of all the vertical buildings in the park system, which of Voorhees is one. And without really repeating everything that Pete said, I agree with everything there, and that's what really started this project off as a roof safety project. And this is one roof of numerous ones that we're working on, but this one is the most unique. And we really tried to think outside of the box every which way we could, and really push the consultants to think outside of the box, and did a lot of research with manufacturers, OSHA standards, with really the idea that we really need to create a more safe access point for the maintenance workers. It is pretty sketchy, as Pete was saying. The center roof is a 5-foot parapet, so you got to climb up a 6-foot ladder. You got to hang a 20-foot extension ladder off the side and then release it and let it go down and hold on to that. And then you got to climb up on top of that parapet wall, so you're 46 feet above ground. and trying to do a 180 move and transfer from one ladder that has no handrails to an extension ladder that you have a little bit sticking up. And hope you nailed it when you got the legs down straight and climb on down, and then reverse. When you have to do that, you also have to pick that ladder up, drag it all the way back up and pull it in. So it's a pretty unsafe situation. And we really are looking at this for the safety of the citywide maintenance team that has to get up there and do that. And because of this issue, oftentimes not as much maintenance occurs on that roof that really should be happening for inspections, other things, because it is pretty treacherous and hazardous. We looked at many different ideas and talked through a lot of different things. And this is, while it has a very small visual impact to it, and we're trying to minimize that as much as possible, any other type of solution required cutting holes in walls and ceilings and other things to try and create brand new access points and openings into the roof and different things, and seemed just so much more and tremendously more invasive to the Voorhees Memorial than the ladders. And again, we tried to look at fold down options, removable handrails, all kind of different things. And again, to be able to climb up a 5-foot ladder and set in, handrails and guardrails and be tied in all at the same time for safety and to meet OSHA standards. There really isn't any type of solution that's actually out there for this type of situation that anyone could find. And talking to manufacturers, that was kind of the feedback also. So we hope that the commission will take note of all these items and think about the safety of the workers and maintenance, and trying to really keep this building in tip-top condition and make that maintenance easier. And we'll vote to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions for our applicants? Nick?
Yeah, did you explore the possibility of hinging all of those 90-degree angle connections and then having the ladder float back and lay on the roof?
We did. That was one of the things we were looking at doing was could we have those railings fold down, or possibly have the whole ladder fold down so it wasn't visible when it was not in use. And the structural engineer came back and said, really it's not possible structurally to provide the adequate loads on that ladder that are
It
required.
seems, yeah, I would press them, because it seems if you gusset the 90-degree, where it needs to stop, and then you just have a steel pin connection through the ladder, the structure should be the same.
I would second that. Martin should know, he should be able to work through that, I would think, pretty easily, to have a hinge connection. And I don't think the load transfer would be much different than what you just described.
I think the practical matter with that is the weight of it, and having the worker have to do that in a way that is safe and it doesn't drop too fast. But if they're using aluminum ladders now, this could be made out of aluminum, I would think.
Yeah, lighter material.
Yeah.
Right.
And so then it would be light enough. And then the permanent stops on the facade that are exposed would be similar, but maybe rubberized in order to absorb the cushion for when the thing folds down into place. And if that tall run is too tall, it can be folded in half as well. It just seems to me like it would be worth the time and energy and cost to pursue that alternative, given how this simply looks just in the renderings. And Larry, thanks for pulling it off the consent agenda.
Can you expand on that a little bit? You're asking if the entire ladder can fold down when and not be visible, or
no?
Just clarify what you're saying.
I'm proposing that these connections right here, all these three, be pinned through, and then so the ladder folds up and lays flat on the roof.
You basically
When
take
not
a,
in use.
yeah, you basically take a rope to the long end, right? And then you kind of pull it up and flap it over onto that taller roof, right? Is what he's trying to get at.
Yeah, so and a gusset, I mean, it's just a plate or a pin that provides the stop so that it doesn't over rotate. But all of these, it would just be a pin through and then the whole thing comes up and lays flat on the roof. It seems like a practical solution. If it's not something you considered before and ruled out.
Michael, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just want to kind of weigh in there. When I spoke about, we've spent probably 5 to 6 hours of exploration with Martin and Martin, with their senior leader for structural engineering and their other structures. And when I talk about thinking outside the box, we have talked about these things a lot. I've asked tons of questions. We've done a lot of research, and I appreciate the thought with that of being able to create some fulcrum and being able to lift a 17 to 18 foot ladder up and flip it around into the middle. We've talked about trying to do those things. I mean, we would have to probably run power up there and put minimally a hand crank that would pull that up and flip that thing over. You know, you're still kind of getting into, you know, what all is happening with the city worker that's up there and being able to pull that up and create that fulcrum movement there at the very top hinge to lay that over. We would still have it probably sticking part of it out up there, but then we still have the guardrails and the gates and everything else that are still in place. We've explored trying to figure out, can you fold those over? Can you not? The problem with folding over the pieces that extend over the lower roof, you'd still have to be able to unlock those and lock those in place to be able to lift those up, and those don't meet OSHA standards. I mean, we have spent many hours really trying to kind of beat every single thing up in which way we can and stuff, and trying to talk to manufacturers and research manufacturers and just scouring the internet and magazines or catalogs, trying to find products. Pretty much anything like that we're talking about all has to be custom fabricated. We can't really get OSHA approved standards. Structural engineers don't really want to kind of take on that liability and saying that this will meet all OSHA standards without ever being tested. So yeah, there's been a lot of conversations and certainly we have tried to find some alternative solutions to what we can do out there and how to do that and how to have city workers clipped in safely and not putting them at risk by flipping things around and moving things or hanging them off of stuff while you're 46 feet in the air. And yeah, I mean, we've exhausted a lot of different ways to try and tackle this.
Hey, Michael, do you know how many often maintenance workers get up there?
How many workers go up there?
How often? How frequent?
Well, they're up there numerous times a year. It depends on you know, what's happening up there. As mentioned before, we had a roof leak and plumbing internal to the vaulted ceilings that leaked down and stained things. Normally we try and get up minimally once a year, if not twice a year, to do roof inspections, flashing inspections, sealants, other things there. And so it varies, but usually it's definitely a few times a year. And during the fall, they do have to try and get up there and clear out any kind of leaves or debris or anything that may be clogging the drains. There's only one drain per arched lower roof, and those are kind of down towards each end. So they do have to kind of get up there and do that. So and again, part of this is doing a different hatch, and there's a 40 foot or 41 foot old metal ladder that climbs up, and it's really difficult to actually just get through the roof hatch, and that's part of this project also, is to improve that aspect of it, although that's not visually impacting things. It's hidden within the column.
Question, in the narrative, it mentioned using mechanical lifts and that they struggle to reach the height of the lower roof deck safely. Is it though possible to reach those lower roof decks with mechanical lifts?
It
It
is.
is, we do have to go in and close the park down, you know, and kind of rope off between the fountain and each side. You can bring in, we usually have to bring in an extendable lift, one that's big enough to get you up beyond, I think the lower roof parapet is 35 feet. And you can get somebody up to the edge of that, but then you do have to then climb out of the basket and climb over the parapet and then get onto the roof. So in theory, that actually really doesn't meet OSHA safety standards, but that is kind of the way it has to happen. To get underneath the lower armed roofs, we have to bring in a scissor lift on a truck or a trailer and back up to the ends of those two pieces that kind of swing out there, and bring a scissor lift in that can get you up to about 30 feet in the air. And then you can kind of work on the underneath side of it. So, I mean, it is pretty tricky. I mean, we've discussed, like, could Denver Parks and Rec invest in a big, huge piece of extendable equipment that would lift you up and over the top of the parapet and set it down on the roof? But that's pretty difficult with the amount of space where the fountain is between there and then, or you have to be out in the Colfax and close down the street to get that extension. And currently, I don't know if anybody even within the city owns a piece of equipment that large that can do that. So do we get put in a situation where we're renting that kind of equipment just to get up there? It's a challenge. Beautiful building, but it doesn't have great access to get to those things to properly maintain it.
So it sounds like then there hasn't been a sort of formal investigation of whether there is locally available equipment to rent and how much that would cost versus this solution.
Well, they citywide maintenance team does get up there again a couple times, but it's a few times a year, and they don't get up there as often because it is you know, pretty difficult and a lot of gyrations to be able to get equipment out there and stuff. And then again, you're crossing a gap between the parapet wall and the safety lift, and that you're exposed and you're stepping out onto. If you kind of look at the right-hand side of this arch, there's a little ledge right there, and you have to step out onto that and then climb over the parapet wall to get onto the roof, and then you have to drop down about 4 feet or so from the roof. Sometimes they bring a small ladder to try and make that easier for somebody who's maybe not as tall. So yeah, kind of right in that area, we have the cornice that sticks out, and then the base sticks out. So it makes it difficult. The scissor lift keeps like a 2 or 3 foot gap between the wall, and if you can do an extendable lift out there, then you can get it up closer to it, but you still leave, you know, just not to hit the wall. You probably still have a foot gap, and you're still climbing over that parapet wall. So none of it is really ideal. I mean, there are ways that they do get up there, and they've had to be creative. But again, it's not something that actually meets OSHA safety standards. So they are putting themselves at a little bit of risk to try and climb over those walls. And then you have to climb back over it and then climb back into the basket of any kind of lift that's there. So it has been being done, but you know, kind of in these timeframes of trying to be more cognizant of worker safety and OSHA standards, you know, we're looking at trying to find better ways not to put you know, people at risk, whether it's a contractor or city workers.
Any other commissioners have questions for the applicants?
I do. Do you happen to know how, for instance, the colonnade at Cheeseman is maintained? I mean, is this something that would be an applicable situation on multiple sites, or is it so unique, especially due to the parapet and those considerations? You know, would equipment be able to be used in multiple situations like that?
I cannot speak to the Cheeseman access at this point in time. I could do some more research and provide information to Brittany on that.
That's fine. I'm just curious. I was just curious about.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
George, did you have something? Anybody else?
I just wanted to come back to the question earlier about the railings that could be lowered and then raised and lowered when necessary. You know, we did consider that option, and that was our actually preferred solution. What we were told about that was, again, number one, there didn't meet the structural loads, and I can only go on what the structural engineer told us about that. But number two, it also required a worker, once the railings are raised, still requires someone to walk up the ladder and then secure some pins in place to secure those railings in place. What that does is expose the worker at the time they're climbing up the ladder and standing on the platform before those railings are actually all secured in place. So there's a time when the worker is exposed to fall doing that maneuver, and that's why that solution was not favored by the engineers.
It sounds like what you're describing is bottom up, not top down, as I described. Is that right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys are the experts. I just thought it was a creative solution, wondered if you considered it. You know, from the top down, just to have that thing lay flat on the roof and then fold into several sections down over the parapet. But you know, this is your purview. I just wondered if you considered it.
We did, yeah.
From the top down, because what you described, I thought was from the bottom up.
No, what I'm describing is from the top because first of all, the worker has to climb up about a 5 or 6 foot ladder to get over the parapet wall. When you're on the high roof, climb up a 5 or 6 foot ladder to the top of the parapet wall, and then you drop down 15 or 16 feet onto the lower roof. So just to get up to the platform from the high roof is a 5 or 6 foot climb up a ladder, and that's where that worker is getting exposed to.
Well, what I would suggest is they could be standing on the roof and deploy this thing. But look, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I want you guys to be able to solve your problem. But there's this issue of, you know, how this thing looks on the monument. And that's, I guess, our purview.
So do you look into like commercial window washing equipment like davits, like you could have a temporary post with a cantilever to it that could lift things from the ground or lift things down to the lower roof? Seems like this problem occurs and has been solved so many times before without adding elements like this so prominent.
Yeah, again, we like Michael said, I thought we really looked outside the box to try to find a solution to this that was less visible. I think one of the challenges was if there's any kind of mechanical parts or equipment up on the roof, whether it's a pulley system or some type of mechanical lift that's going to be exposed to the elements, rusting, just being exposed to the weather. And so that becomes a maintenance issue in itself. So we were looking for something that not only is safe, but also is doesn't create more of a maintenance problem in itself.
And I would counter that with this ladder could become a maintenance issue. You know, we're we're obviously putting anchors into this historic masonry. And oftentimes these anchors, in my experience, fall because they're not sealed, right? And they're deleterious to to the stone itself. So I would say even something like this could be a maintenance issue down the line as well.
Commissioners, other questions for the applicants? All right, gentlemen, there aren't any more questions, so let's go on to the public comment period to see if there's, you didn't want to.
Just me.
Just, hi again. Okay, public comment, if anybody is joining us virtually, click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9, and you can join by phone or email Denver.gov or Denver Landmark. What is it?
Denver Landmark. Or sorry, landmark@denvergov.org.
With your name and phone number. Yeah, so Taylor, doesn't look like we've got anybody. No. Okay, excellent. All right then. Then let's go on to Commissioner's deliberation. What are your thoughts? A lot of discussion.
I guess I'll start with just
Sure.
the reason I wanted to pull this is that it is a little bit concerning looking at the renderings that, and I appreciate that this is a legitimate safety concern, and I'm glad that as a city, we're looking at how to maintain these structures within OSHA requirements. I think even with matching paint, particularly on the north side of the memorial, when the sun is coming from the south, it's gonna throw that into shadow. It is gonna be these little, kind of ears, very starkly visible, rising above the triumphal arch. And yeah, it gave me a bit of pause when I saw that, and to see, that the detailing is very industrial. It kind of just reminded me of like early, like accessibility ramps that would be attached to a historic building and kind of look like a tacked on temporary solution. And so, yeah, I guess my feeling right now is I think maybe they could, do a little bit more exploration into possibilities from conversation that we've had here. But I'm curious what other commissioners think.
Sure. Okay, George will.
I didn't hear any discussion of all of these gymnastics that poor workers have to do while having at least one handful of tools and or materials. Having a lot of experience myself in climbing over parapets and hoping to hell that the ladder on the other side is as stable as it was when I left it. I think that this solution has been thought out to the best of the ability of the vendors and the contractors and the builders, considering that this whole shebang wasn't even built, was built long before OSHA and workers' comp, and workers weren't quite as disposable now as they were then. I would support this particular plan.
Okay. Others?
I guess I'd just like to weigh in that, I think hearing from the applicant, it's clear that they feel like they've spent a lot of time thinking this through, and they're really trying to find the right solution. But I agree with Larry that, when I look at the rendering on what is supposed to be it's a monument. You're not supposed to be looking at it thinking of like, how do they get up there? What's on top? How does this thing function? It is simply to look at it as it's in its grandeur. And I think these ladders just very starkly distract from that. And so while keeping in mind that I think we all hear from the applicant that they have taken a lot of time to think this through, given what they're proposing, I think it would be worthwhile to still push back a little bit and ask them to consider some more alternatives, either ones that have been discussed today or some other options, whether temporary, just temporary access that somehow gets them what they need. And again, hearing very clearly that worker safety is tantamount to their concerns, which I certainly appreciate. So I think it's just worth pushing back on this case at this point. So I would suggest denying it for now.
I do have a recommendation because this may be the only solution. And if you deny it, they're not legally allowed to bring this project back.
Oh,
Why is that? Sorry, confused.
Because you have.
As a city?
Yeah, you have.
Oh, this particular source.
This
I
is
see.
the only
Got it.
solution.
Got it.
Yes. So if the question is you would like more options explored, I would recommend a continuance
Okay,
for this project.
okay, that's good to know.
Just my suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that ship ladder detail and drawing is one of a million in the city, right? That's copy and paste. That's about as basic as it comes, and I think that I agree with the majority of the other members that that some more exploration would be beneficial.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I agree as well.
Okay. Then, do I hear a motion? It sounds like we're looking at a motion for continuance.
So that you would need to ask the applicant
Oh,
if they are acceptable to that, amenable to that, when they could return it
okay.
back. 'Cause
Is
it
the
has to be-
applicant amenable to a continuance?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. And then, any idea of when you might be able to return? More information?
I would give it another month.
Okay. What does that look
So,
like? The 2nd of December?
Be December
But if they need, if it needs to be 2 weeks, how much time is it?
Today is the filing deadline for the December 3rd meeting.
Is there any reason why it has to be rushed back in?
I would recommend the second meeting in
The second
December,
in
just
December, yeah.
because of, I know what's on the agenda
Yeah,
for
the
December
agenda-
3rd.
The December 3rd agenda is already pretty heavy.
So I would recommend December 17th. Does that work for you, Pete?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Okay, then,
I'll give
Larry?
it a shot.
Excellent.
Okay. I move to continue to the December 17th meeting. Landmark meeting, application number 2024-COA-816 for the roof access ladder and safety improvements at 100 West Colfax Avenue, the Voorhees Memorial. Is that sufficient?
But
Oh,
we
2020,
first,
yes. The, to clarify the date, the December 17th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Larry. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, great. We'll see you on the 17th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. All right, to our design, the final design review project, 2024-COA-256 at 1366 North Humboldt Street in the Wyman District. And that is Amy's project.
Everyone, Amy Amadon representing the design review staff. We're here to talk about 1366 North Humboldt, which some of you will remember was discussed in May. I think some members are new. And so this will be a presentation I should give you some background on. I will say we're kind of here to make lemonade of a situation where some historic windows have been discarded in opposition to approval that the board granted. So we need a solution. 1366 North Humboldt is located in the Wyman Historic District. And last March, our zoning inspector, our landmark zoning inspector, observed windows being replaced on this property without approved permits. Stop work order was issued. The before that occurred, 5 of the original windows had been replaced with composite units. I appeared with the applicant before the commission in May for a solution. Applicant requested replacement of all of the remaining historic windows, which was denied. After that decision, staff worked with the property owner to resolve the fact that there were 5 composite windows that had already been put in place. We issued an approval for those to be replaced with aluminum clad windows that meet the guidelines and operated like the historic units had. At some point after that, the applicant applied for a building permit to execute that work. And I became aware that the permit had stalled, that response to comments wasn't occurring and there wasn't progress. I reached out to the property owner and he informed me he had become frustrated with the process and he had replaced the rest of the historic windows with the composite units that he had purchased in the spring. I will say that we had tried to offer some resources to the applicant. I know that he was frustrated trying to find someone who would do window restoration, things like that. Really not here to finger point, just to give some explanation of how this has all occurred. Next slide, please. So on the left is the property as it existed at the time of the LPC review. So you can see in the bay window, there's 2 of the 5 composite windows that were installed before the zoning inspector stopped the project. They were double hung windows and had been changed to fixed or casement windows. But you can see some of the historic units still in place at that time. On the right is today, where all of the windows in the home, in the historic portion of the home, have been replaced with composite units. Next slide, please. Here's the view of the side of the house. There are 2 large openings that were altered at some point in the past. We thought perhaps before the district had ever been created, so they've never been a topic of discussion here. But in this image, you see on the upper floor on the left-hand side, some of the historic units still in place, and on the right-hand side, all replaced with composite. When it was discovered that the original windows had been replaced, zoning inspection services visited the site again, issued a stop work again and a citation, which the property owner paid for $150. And now we're here to determine what's the best appropriate action. I have explained to the applicant that the composite windows do not meet the design guidelines, not only in terms of material, but some of the window operations, as I mentioned, have been changed. I advise that rather than coming to you and asking for approval for what's installed now, which I believe would be unsuccessful, that a better alternative would be to propose aluminum clad windows that meet the guidelines to match the original operations. That is the request that is on the table for you. Next slide, please. Staff recommends approval. There are 2 conditions suggested, one of which has to do with the window pointed to with an arrow here on the side of the house. There is a awning window and a staircase, a little hopper that opens just a bit to get ventilation into the stair area. Applicant would like to replace that with a double hung, and we suggest that doesn't meet the design guidelines, which require matching window operations. So we've suggested that not be allowed. And also we've next slide, please, Brittany. We've suggested the standard condition of approval that new windows be inset by 2 inches into the rough opening. Overall, the replacement windows, the aluminum clad windows that are proposed are high quality, and they are demonstrated to match the dimensions as best we can to the historic units that have been replaced. Staff recommends that as the approved solution here.
All righty, commissioners, thanks, Amy. Commissioners, any questions for Amy? No? Okay, great. Amy, thank you. And our applicant is here.
Yes.
Did you wish to have a seat, please? Thanks for your patience.
Sure.
Turning into a long meeting. Sorry.
Hey, beats going out and trying to vote.
Standing in line.
My name is Ted Kuntz. I'm with Renewal by Anderson, the company that I worked for and have worked for the last 20 years. The house in question, as you guys well know, or at least some of you know, I know some of you, this is the first time you guys are seeing this project, was inherited by myself and my brother and a third partner. And upon inheriting the property, we found it to be in fairly dilapidated condition. There were a number of projects that my father had started but has not completed. And it was brought to our attention that we wanted to try and get those done as soon as possible. Since I work for a window and door company, I went ahead and started the process of replacing the windows in question. And that's when the project stopped. Can we back up to the slide before this one?
And actually, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, Brittany, there is a presentation of slides that the
I'm
applicant
sorry,
has.
yes, I did have that open. I'm pausing your time, so I can
Okay.
pull that up.
Well, that's coming up.
Yes.
It's a bit of a sticky wicket. There's a tenant in there. The windows didn't operate. They literally were rotting and falling apart. There was definitely discrepancy as far as the condition of the windows based off my experience and the experience of a third party person that came out and inspected the windows. We did try to adhere to the recommended approval process. But in the course of trying to find somebody to repair the windows, proved to be futile. We had 6 different companies that were recommended to us, 3 others that I found on my own. Only one of those actually came out to look at the windows, and the one that did come out said that he did not want to do the project as far as repairing the windows that hadn't been already replaced. If you look at this picture of the windows prior to us starting to work on them, and then go to the next slide. The windows as they are, just the front of the house, yeah. Next slide.
So
No,
sorry.
as they are now. They're pretty much in line with condition of aesthetics of what the windows were prior to us starting on the project. So that was the goal. The goal was not to destroy, the goal was not to, make the house worse. The Historic Preservation Commission in their own literature says that the goal of the historic district is to preserve and protect historic landmarks and the architectural and cultural heritage, which we were trying to do. The windows in question. This is probably not the right forum for this, but since I have 10 minutes, I should probably do the best I can to say my request for you is to let us stop and not do anything else to these windows. By the way, the awning window around the corner that Amy had pointed to earlier, that's also been replaced. So that window doesn't exist. It currently has a window in there. And we would just like to leave it alone because the project's done. When it comes to preserving and protecting, it's kind of ridiculous. The guidelines talk about, first of all, trying to repair windows into condition or maintaining windows into a condition before trying to replace them. Well, if you don't have the know-how of how to do that, George had suggested that I just repair them myself at the last meeting. Or if you can't find contractors willing to do the work and you have a problem, you're kind of stuck. So yes, we definitely took it upon ourselves to try and at least get it to a condition that we felt was safe for the tenant that lives in there. Product. You guys are smart enough to know that when you take metal and wrap it over wood, the wood is going to rot from the inside out. I've replaced hundreds of thousands of windows over the 20 years I've been doing this, but that's exactly what happens. The wood in question, if you replace it, doesn't have the growth cycle, isn't as dense as the wood that it had previously. So by forcing people to put wood-clad product into their homes, when and if replacement is warranted, you're actually doing them a disservice because that will not last. In addition to that, taking metal storm windows, putting them on the outside of wood windows in order to help make it more efficient also is the wrong process. You're taking metal and putting it against wood, which, as I hope you guys know, will cause that also to rot. If we could go forward, just a couple slides, one more. Keep going. This is the condition of the windows. Can you blow this window up here on the left? This is the condition of the windows when we further, well, that one's good too. I was going to the left there.
It's touchy.
That's okay.
It's fighting me.
Don't you love technology?
It's great when it works, right?
Stop right there. So this is what people do. Throughout the neighborhood, you'll see this. Windows are falling apart. They put bubble wrap, they put plastic up, they put drapes up to try and make the house more comfortable. But by doing that, it's actually deteriorating the wood behind it. You can see in this photo here, this wood is falling apart. It's rotted around the frame there. Not only that, you've got water that starts to seep in underneath your brickwork. More of a problem. So the wrong solution is to keep requiring people in order to make a better efficient product or better efficiency in their home. You don't want to add metal to the outside of windows. That causes the process of deterioration to accelerate. So that's the condition we found them in. Can you go to the next slide, I think? Possibly two more. Let's go back, sorry. These aren't in any order. They were, unfortunately, I could not get them into an order that makes sense. And if we could go back right there and blow that up just a little bit. So as you can see now, all of that is protected. It is fixed, it is repaired. There is no more water infiltration. And it is done with a product that won't rot. In the literature, you guys allow Fibrex in the basement. You also allow fiberglass in the basement. The question that I would have is why? I assume because you don't want it to rot below grade. Well, why are we willing to let it rot above grade? I get that the material is not the same, but from where you're sitting, these windows were designed as replacement windows. To replace Andersen's wood windows. The E-Series windows in the proposal were made to be replaced by the Acclaim composite. People are doing decks, wood decks these days, out of composite materials. They also still do it out of wood, but boy, it costs a lot of money and it requires a ton of maintenance. So I would ask that you guys, as far as a reasonable solution to the sticky wicket that I find myself in, to not do anything, because there's nothing needed to be done in this instance. I get that the guideline is you got to use wood, but boy, I sure hope when you guys do your review, which by the way, people have been saying they're going to be reviewing this process. I hope you guys get into materials in some detail. Forcing people to put wood back into their home, especially on anything that's exposed, is doing them a disservice and not preserving and protecting the building. It's actually making it worse. That's about all I got for now.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Robert?
So what is the application that you're bringing to us today? Because it sounds to me like you're saying leave as is, but is that what the application is? Frank, I apologize because when I pull it up, everything's erased. And I don't know if that's my technical problem or not, but I can't see the application fully. Like when I look over at Larry's.
The application that I would put in was to try and resolve the issue.
Which is,
but I guess if that's the only thing I can do is rip out all the windows that have been installed and put in E-Series windows, I guess that's what we have to do. But that seems like a ridiculous solution to the problem at hand.
That is the application that was provided to us, was replacement of all the windows with aluminum clad. And so that is what staff's recommendation is based on. If that is not what is proposed, then we'll need to talk about this at another meeting.
Right. I mean, it sounds like you're kind of saying two things.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I'm not sure
Your
which one
application
we're
is
actually.
asking us to consider something other than what you've just presented to us.
I'm just trying to figure out the best paths forward
Sure.
and stop getting fined. But
Sure.
when I had asked what the fine was, they said, well, we'll cover that some other time. And I'm like, well, what is the fine? And it was very difficult to figure out what it was. Well, apparently it's $1,000 every 2 weeks until you resolve the situation.
The fines have been suspended at this time because we're working through a process.
And we also don't speak for neighborhood inspections who issue and determine the fines.
Right.
Commissioners?
Yeah, I just technically speaking, I think that I'm not quite on the same page as far as the wood windows go. I think there's very high performing aluminum clad windows. The thermal performance of wood through cold air transfer into a home is better in a wood window than it is in a vinyl window. So,
Don't want vinyl. You're absolutely right.
or composite, whatever it may be. So I just think that,
Are these questions for the
I'm
applicant?
sorry.
Or is this more board deliberation?
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
No.
If it's a question though, that's.
No, I just like, do you have any kind of like evidence to support what you're trying to say,
Absolutely.
other than, I guess, just sales experience?
No, so, yeah, right. I've been doing this for a long time. And I don't know how much of this you guys have seen. So that was another thing. Last time I came around here, I never feel like this is the right forum for this conversation. It seems more like it's like not a deliberation on products or those types. It's just and I don't know if you can see this from where you're sitting, but wood clad product rots here in Colorado like crazy because that metal holds moisture against that wood. You don't see it until you take the cladding off, but it's rotting from the inside out. I've been into homes, I've been into historic homes where they've had approved product put in, and here they are looking at replacing it again. Generally, we walk away because we know that you guys don't allow our product in there. In my instance, this is my own house. And for the life of me, I don't want to put wood clad product into my house. I know it's going to rot, it's just a matter of time. So yeah, I went the other way. This is this is cladding on the outside. You take the cladding off, the wood's rotting from the inside out. And the same thing happens with metal storm windows. You put a metal storm window over wood, it's gonna hold condensation against that wood, which is one of the pictures I was trying to show you. That's totally rotted out. So the solution was don't do anything. Well, I have to do something. The windows weren't operating, they were warped. The benefit of having the windows in obviously is something that's not going to fall apart, and it offers better energy efficiency. All of the stuff that people try to do when they try to improve a house. We weren't even necessarily trying to improve it. We were just trying to fix it back to the condition it was before we inherited it. And we had a picture of what it used to look like. Well, it wasn't looking like that anymore. It was falling apart. So I work for a company, right? I love the product that we sell. I stand behind it. I've been selling it for over the last 20 years. Why I would be forced to put something else in just didn't sit well. And I apologize that if I offended the board or offended the committee. That wasn't my intention. My intention was to maintain this historic nature of the house with a product that I thought would work best in that capacity.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? No, okay, all right. Thank you. We don't have anyone here to make a public comment, so do we have anybody joining us? We definitely don't. No, do we have anybody joining us virtually that wanted to comment? Does it look like it? Okay, great. All right, then commissioners, let's go ahead and go into deliberation then. What are your thoughts?
I remain at sea because of the conflict between the presentation and the application.
Yeah, me too.
And frankly, that raises concerns for me that, we already weighed on this project. Came to a motion that we denied, and then that was followed through. So if this kind of conflict between what's being presented to us and what we're
Being asked to do.
documentation and then by the applicant today, I worry about even weighing in on this, and will that have any weight? Because what we've already said was disregarded. So I'm just concerned, but I understand the need to move forward and find a solution, and we can't. That's what we need to do. But
Seems like our purview is following the guidelines, and the guidelines are explicit.
and that the application materials before us, how those meet the guidelines rather than anything else.
Okay. Larry, what do you have to say?
Oh, just, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think all we can do is just look at the application that we've reviewed and we kind of have to disregard the commentary about leaving them in place because that's not the application that
It's
we
not the
were
application
given.
that we presented.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, all right, then, do I hear a motion?
I'll do it.
Okay, Erica.
I move to approve with conditions application number 2024-COA-256 for window replacement at 1366 North Humboldt Street as per design guidelines 2.14, 2.16, and 2.19. Character defining features for the Wyman Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in staff report. With the conditions, one, that window W110 must be replaced with a clad unit that matches the documentation for the original window, including all dimensions and operation as an awning window. And that 2, the replaced windows must be installed with a 2-inch recess into the rough opening.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
George is seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, well, the application has been approved with conditions. The application that was presented us.
No problem with that. There is no awning window that meets that requirement. It's too big.
So you'll need to work with Amy on next steps for this application as the
Okay.
commission has made a decision and determination on this project.
I get it. So basically I gotta replace all the windows. But they can't cover what to do with that window at this time.
You can work with Amy on that.
Well, they have said you need to go back to the original operation that the window was.
It doesn't exist. Sorry, it used to go like this, big window. They don't make them like that anymore. So.
So
does somebody-
we approved the application that's presented to us. So
Okay.
if there are discrepancies, then you'll need to talk to Amy about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that brings to the end our design review projects. We do have a business item and it is a 2025 LPC calendar. And we have descriptions of what I'm supposed to do for this up here. These are items for commission deliberation and voting. The chair will announce each business item on the agenda, and we only have one today. Staff will introduce the business item. The commissioners may question staff. Public comment period, 2 minutes per person. If you would like to speak regarding a specific project and you are not part of that applicant, please click the hand raise button. For those calling via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're having difficulty with either hand raise option, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number. Staff can clarify if necessary. Commission will deliberate, the commission will make a motion and vote. Our business item is the 2025 LPC calendar. Brittany, you are the staff person, take it away.
So every year we adopt the filing deadlines and meeting dates for each year. And we typically do this in November as our filing deadlines do come up in December for the January meetings. Our ordinance does state that the commission will meet on the first and third Tuesday of every month. And we have double checked the 2025 calendar with city holidays and city closures and major holidays that are Christian and non-Christian related. And there are no conflicts with the 2025 meeting dates occurring on the first and third Tuesday of the month. However, we would like to make one minor adjustment to the filing deadlines. Our typical filing deadlines are 4 weeks prior to the intended meeting date. But for the January 21st meeting date, the filing deadline at 4 weeks would fall on Christmas Eve. The city is open on that day. However, we are proposing to adjust the January 21st filing deadline from 4 weeks to 5 weeks. So that would be a filing deadline of December 17th. And that is the one change that we're proposing for next year's calendar.
Okay,
And this does require a motion.
yes, it does.
So we are recommending that it be approved with that adjustment, but we also have an alternate one in which we would just proceed on with the normal. But please don't
All right,
do
you
that
have any
to
questions
us.
for Brittany,
Yeah.
commissioners? Okay, cool. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Don't think we have anyone from the public that would like to
Santa
comment.
Claus has an issue.
Well, there you go. Okay, then do I hear a motion from the commissioners?
I'll do it. So,
George will do it.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the 2025 filing deadline and meeting dates with the adjustment to the January 21st filing date to be 5 weeks ahead instead of 4 weeks.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Larry has seconded it. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, great. Then we do have a discussion. Normally we take a 5-minute break at 3 o'clock. Does anybody like to do that? Or we want to push through? I'm good at pushing through. All right, let's push through and go to our discussion items. We have one item. These are informational items or items for a commission to discuss without action. The chair will announce the discussion items on the agenda. The staff will introduce the informational item or item for discussion. There typically is no public comment for discussion items. I could allow that if we wanted to, but it doesn't look like anybody's lined up to do so. The commission will discuss amongst themselves and with the staff. No actions or votes will be taken for discussion items. And Brittany and Amy are our staff representatives on this project, so take it away.
I'm going to pull up the draft for the bylaws so we can look at the red lines.
So that Anderson Kool-Aid was so toxic.
So what?
I bet if Anderson made a little part of it,
Sorry.
Do you want to lead, Amy, or do you want me?
Why don't you lead except for the 2 sections that I will cover.
Sorry, it's coming. Okay, so these are the commission bylaws. They have not been updated.
Sorry.
It's me, sorry. They have not been updated since the pandemic, and we felt that it was time to make an update to the bylaws. The bylaws are really intended to structure how the meetings work and function. So the first section is about election of officers. We do hold those in May. We have no significant changes to that section. We are introducing this new section to the bylaws that discuss our filing deadlines because we do not have that written down anywhere. The attorneys have advised us that when you do adopt the meeting calendars, you do adopt the filing deadlines as well, but we should make it very clear how we set our filing deadlines. So this does discuss that applications are due 4 weeks prior to the intended meeting date at noon. The staff and chair can discuss what was received and make adjustments to filing deadlines based on holidays and city closures per what we just did for the January meeting. We also do limit our agendas, and this is something that, again, we have adopted previously when we adopt the meeting dates. But we're just providing clarity for that here in this filing deadline section, which was previously down below in the meetings of the commission section. So that section 3 language is really just something that was down below in the meetings of the commissions that we're just pulling up into this section to make it really clear about how agendas are set. So we as staff get together on the Thursdays following the filing deadlines and officially set the agendas based on if we have public hearings or not. So we limit agendas to 8 items. If there's a public hearing, they are limited to 6, and then the consent agenda is unlimited. However, we are merely humans. So in section 4, we are proposing that if staff receives more than 3 applications per the filing deadline, that we try our best to accommodate reassigning that to a staff or moving that to the next agenda. Do you have anything further?
Yeah, so I'll speak to just two parts of this group of edits, the filing deadlines, and then in a moment to public comment. And I will say, I'm still new here, and part of what I'm presenting to you today is my perspective from a long time in a different jurisdiction and kind of reflecting on practices there that I think were successful. We did not have filing deadlines with the city of Aspen. I don't know the history of them here, but I respect that the idea is the time is of the essence, and people who are subject to this process are a smaller population of the city, that it's an extra hoop, and that we want to commit to helping people get through the process quickly. I totally respect that. That said, in execution, it can be very difficult. There was a recent week, sometimes LPC and LDDRC fall on the same week. There was a recent week when I think Brittany had 7 memos due. Because we never know when things get assigned out, someone does a pre-app with a client and then they don't return for months and months, and it all comes together at once. Everybody's ready this week, and it can be difficult. And we will reassign cases when we can. We will ghostwrite for each other. We will offer whatever support possible, but we need a safety net. We are down a staff member right now. We have 2 staff members on FMLA leave. Things happen. And so the proposal here is to clarify that there is a limit and that we will need sometimes to say an agenda item has to be pressed to the next agenda because that staff person is at their maximum and we don't have a plan B.
So the next section is meetings of the commission. Again, the cross out you're seeing here in section 1 is about the filing deadlines and how agendas are set. So that was just moved up to the filing deadline section. At the end of the section, it does say that, again, that absent any objection of the commissioner, the chair and commission staff can postpone regular meetings to accommodate holidays and city closures. So again, just making sure we are flexible in case our ordinance conflicts with when the city might potentially be closed for holidays and major things like that. Just some minor updates to some consistencies in terms of typing out numbers and spelling out numbers that have been made. So the next major change is section 6. We are eliminating this section that talks about proxy voting as we're a quasi-judicial board. So we never use proxy voting. So we are just simply recommending that this be eliminated from our bylaws. So the last time the bylaws were updated, it was during the pandemic, and it was for us to accommodate virtual attendance. So we have this section of the bylaws that talk about during a period of emergency as declared by the state, mayor, or city officials, we can meet virtually. However, since the pandemic, ordinances have been updated, which allow all commissions, boards to meet virtually. So we no longer need this section in our bylaws specifically. So we are proposing to remove that old language from 2020 out of our bylaws. So that's what you're seeing in what is now numbered section 6. But a big update would be what we have proposed for section 7, which does allow for up to 2 commissioners to participate virtually for any reason. So we essentially have modeled this after what planning board does specifically, which allows for 2 members to participate virtually as long as they notify staff and the chair at least more than 2 hours before the meeting starts. And we can allow that on a first come, first served basis. Any requests submitted less than 2 hours before the meeting starts, that would be the discretion of the chair to allow that for extraordinary circumstances. So essentially, we would need a in-person quorum to hold meetings, but 2 commissioners every meeting for any reason, if you so desired, could attend virtually. So I don't know how often planning board or city council takes advantage of this, as the language is also pretty similar for city council. But for Board of Adjustment, they always have 2 commissioners that rotate off and attend virtually. This is really up for you to discuss. We had initially discussed this, adding this option for when you as commissioners were not feeling well, but still wanted to attend the meeting. But the attorneys have encouraged us again to match what the other boards and commissions do. And that, again, we have decided to model that after what city council and planning board do, and not so much what Board of Adjustment, where they always have 2 virtual. But we would like you to discuss that option. If you do attend virtually, you cannot do so while you're driving, and you need to have your video camera on. And if you lose connection, essentially, your vote will not be counted unless you're able to rejoin the meeting in time for the vote. So that is up for discussion today. And go ahead.
So the quorum, still need a in-person quorum. Is that stated somewhere else? Because it's not in this language.
Yeah, it's in section, what is now section 6. It says no official business of the commission shall be conducted unless a quorum of not less than 5 voting members is present in person.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next big change is to how we handle public comment. And I am gonna let Amy take this section away.
So as I mentioned, this is something that I have highlighted that maybe has not been a topic that you've all debated much in the past, but I'll offer some perspective on it. As you saw today, there are certain kinds of reviews you perform that are public hearings. Because by ordinance, they have been identified as rising to the level of requiring some kind of formal notification to adjacent properties by mailing a notice, by posting a sign on the property, and giving people in that area a fair chance to know that there's a hearing and that their input is invited. What is happening in the meeting is that everything is sort of being treated like that because public comment is being taken for every item. And a concern that I have raised is that in those instances where public notice hasn't been given, but you're accepting public comment, you're only hearing from a self-selected group of people who either are following the agendas or heard through the grapevine or something like that. So it's not necessarily balanced input. And it is potentially something you are factoring into your gathering of evidence and making a decision as a quasi-judicial board. The suggestion here is that you stop that practice, that there's a public comment period at the beginning of the agenda, and anyone is invited to come and give you any kind of input that they'd like to, but that is separated from your design review cases. This has generated some internal conversation. I know that it's important to welcome public participation for sure. That's not really what's intended. That's not the message that's intended, but to be more careful about procedurally how this may not be the right path to take to allow such open public comment when it is not a noticed public hearing. I think it also has the potential to subject an applicant to extra scrutiny that, again, isn't invited by the ordinance and may affect their use of the property. So that's the basic premise. One of the alternatives Brittany and I discussed today, the chair before each type of review makes some announcements about what will happen next and how things are handled. It could simply be stated there as a reminder that any public comment that's presented was not the outcome of a notice, and that it may be limited in its scope. Anyway, that's the general idea of it, is to be more careful about how much these comments are factored into your decision making.
Nothing would change about how we accept written comments in terms of if those are received in time for noticing, those would still get noticed on the website. If we get additional written comments up until noon, the day of the day prior to the meeting, we would still distribute those out via email. Then also, the attorneys have advised that the applicant or interested members of the public can also distribute written comment at the meeting. So nothing is really proposed to change there, other than it would not be comments after each single individual design review item.
Does that really, though, does that address the kind of self-selection that you've raised, which I appreciate? But if we're hearing it all at once at the beginning versus when we're considering the project, we're still hearing them, and and I'm not really sure if it changes that.
Well, to the extent that you're having a public comment period at the beginning of each meeting, and LDDRC actually does not currently have that. I think we're planning to add it. But to the extent that you've invited that, I think people can come and say whatever they want to, and we can't, I think, prevent, and that wouldn't be a good message, I think, to tell people what they can and cannot say during public comment. I don't know if it's effective. I think the important thing is to keep reminding yourself that when something's not a noticed public hearing, that public comment needs to be taken with an understanding that not everyone knows the discussion is happening. Not everyone who might be interested is here with us. And whether having the comment occur at one time at the beginning of the agenda, and you note that for your future considerations as a commissioner versus hearing it during the case review, I'm not sure if it makes a difference.
We have previously discussed potentially posting more properties when projects are coming in.
Because that's what you need, is more work to
That's
do,
exactly
right?
right.
More
But that's
tasks.
the issue, and it's like, where do we draw the line
Yeah.
in terms of what projects we decide to post and which ones we don't?
Yeah, because really, if it's not posted, then the only way that somebody knows is either the RNO might know. But then-
Yeah, but I think that's
Mhm.
that's to Amy's point, is that there is more notification that goes into the public hearings, because we do send notification within 200 feet of the property. Anything that is scheduled for a public hearing, a sign is posted physically on that property 13 days prior to the meeting.
Sorry for identifying a problem you didn't know you had.
Well, so I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question.
It just feels like you're kind of silencing the people who do want to show up in regards for the people who can't. So that seems a little counterintuitive as well. I don't know if I'm explaining that.
Can you say?
You're saying, okay, well, the people who do have access to the information to show up would have less say to make it fair to the people who don't know about it. But I'm concerned that the culminating effect would be that there's less public say, which I think we're trying to invite, correct? I'm trying to just figure that riddle out.
Would they have less say, or just, it seems like it's just a matter of in what
Shifting.
order we're
So
hearing
it's-
from them?
The suggestion is just to take out the part where it's general preservation, to say any comment about anything happening could be in that spot. I'm just trying to make sure, like, because right now it's,
Right.
you can't talk about a specific case, and we're just taking that stipulation off.
Is that what we're saying? I thought we
trying to
were
know.
saying
Well,
that the public comment at the
Saying is
beginning.
during the design review, for instance, the Humboldt Street case I just had, no public comment would be invited then. If someone had wanted to say something about it, they could say it at the beginning of the agenda,
Right.
because it's an open public comment period. But it wouldn't be heard during your deliberation on that case, which was not a noticed public hearing.
Okay.
So it's really just when we're hearing it versus, beginning versus at the time.
And like a less formal invitation to comment.
Yeah.
And so the concern is that because it wasn't publicly noticed, that it suggests during a meeting that there's like some equivalency of public notice between a public hearing project and design review project, and that we could benefit by making that distinction a little bit more clear.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
not like, it's not a, yeah, because design review, like we talked this morning, we had a case, they mentioned that somebody had 14 letters of support, but that's because he went out and got them, not because the house was there was a notice on the house, and so that the people that didn't support the
May not be
project,
aware.
there may have been people that didn't support it, they weren't heard simply because they didn't know, and so it was the applicant that went out and got, which, yeah, to be honest, I would do the same thing, but so we only heard one side of it, potentially.
I guess I'm just wondering, instead of like doing away with hearing from the public at the time of considering a design review project, instead there's kind of at the beginning of the design review introduction, a reminder along the lines of, you know, these are not publicly posted. And so, you know, the language would have to be massaged and figured out what would be appropriate to say, but something along the lines of kind of a reminder of this isn't the equivalent of a public hearing, public comment. Does that?
That's what it suggested might be a way to bridge this, because we're sensitive to the fact that you care about how the community perceives the commission and your willingness to hear feedback. And you may learn something that you would use for future discussions about guideline policies or something. Public input is helpful. It's just a matter of you recognizing each time that you need to realize not everyone is here for whatever the reason is.
I don't know, is this just open discussion now and all this? I support the change. I think it would be more expeditious. It would move us through the meetings more quickly. And it solves the exact problem you're aiming to solve. So I support the change.
I will say from my personal perspective as the staff who has been sitting at this table for
A long time.
a while now, I also support this change because of the speeding up the meetings, because I don't feel like it precludes comments from occurring. I also have noticed that there are many people who are not familiar with how the process works, and we as staff have to spend time explaining it, which is fine. We have a document that does all that, but even today we had a applicant raise their hand for the public comment section. But on the opposite end, we do have our repeat public commenters, such as those in Curtis Park, who are very familiar with the process. So, you know, I think there is a delicate balance there, but just some other things to consider too is that it may not be that perceived of a change for some people.
That's kind of what I was
And I think it benefits the public too, because they don't have to hold on
They
if
don't
they're
have
the
to
last
stay here
agenda
to ask,
item.
yeah.
They can speak their piece.
Yes.
And
So I had that same thought, so somebody could, if they had a life and they wanted to make a public comment, they would know when it was going to come at the beginning of the meeting, and they didn't have to hang out for the rest of it. But the other was, and please don't anybody be offended by this, we might be overthinking importance, because we're assuming that everybody out there knows the public period, that there were public comments, that we're assuming that people know that process really well. Curtis Park, yeah, Keith Pryor, we'll have to chat with him, but
So the difference is not,
I just
you
don't
think
think
it's
it'll be
not
that big of a difference
for
for the
the
community,
public,
I guess is what I'm saying, but it will probably be really helpful to be, and Keith himself, you know, when there are 3 Curtis Park things at the top, he could just be there, right, the public comments at the beginning, and then go on and do.
How about impact? I mean, do you think it'll, like the comment themselves, will they have the same impact when they're done at the beginning as they will throughout?
I think that's something we've been talking about internally, like, do you lose some of that connection where you're getting that public comment before we have even presented the project to you? So I think that's something we and the
Well,
attorneys.
but
were
we're as
struggling with.
commission members,
feel
we're
like
supposed to look at the agenda, and we're supposed to study the cases before we walk into the room, so that's our responsibility.
and yeah, I think it puts it on us to acknowledge what we've heard,
But we're not-
especially if they're relevant. Like,
But we're not studying or reviewing public comment prior to the meeting, right?
Correct.
Unless
Unless there's
Unless it's
letter-
been for,
yeah.
Unless it's written,
Right.
yeah.
right. But I mean, yeah, so it requires us to be more engaged. Not to say that we're not engaged, but
It just
at the
requires
begin-
us to be commissioners.
yes.
I like that it differentiates more from the public hearing process than, you know, because just putting people in a communal pool versus giving kind of the same weight to design review than a public hearing when, you know, public hearings should have a lot more credence, you know, for that. Does that make?
Yeah.
Came through.
I apologize, I have to walk out, but I would guess I would just also add that, you know, if for some reason, like if we do this, which I think it makes a lot of sense, if it somehow it doesn't work, we can go back, right? Like the bylaws can be changed
Nate's nodding.
if needed. So it's not like we're committing to something that if we find out that it could use some tweaking or something,
They're not commandments.
right? They're guidelines or even,
More of a
They're
guideline than a
bylaws.
rule.
right, but
I like it as long as we can call that section at the beginning airing of grievances.
I wouldn't want a meeting to like get off the rails. you know.
To speak freely.
They'll still have limits on time, each person, right?
Yeah, each 2 minutes per
So
person.
they would be able just to speak very quickly about every project they wanted to cover?
Well, I have a
That
question. Would it be 2 minutes per person per project or
That's
2
what I'm
minutes per
wondering.
person
Yeah,
total?
yeah, that's a good, so if Keith came here with. the
Right, that's what I
I like
was
the
projects in
2
his
minutes
part,
total.
Would it be 2
Yeah.
minutes or 2?
Yeah, it would be 2, so that would be a change, but also, you know,
Probably helpful.
It doesn't really happen.
One
often.
person I've experienced that with in my entire time on the
It seldom,
commission,
it really pretty seldom happens.
and often we don't have public comment after, but often some projects do have a lot of public comments.
Implemented before a certain meeting, like, would it be seen to be suppressing comment?
Yeah, we
Notice?
would definitely talk to communications about how to message this before we rolled it out.
Go through the rhinos.
But it's not very.
Like to get out the vote sort of thing. It's, you know. hey,
Do you
get
need
your
an official,
comment or this
do y'all
is
need
what you
official
voted on.
feedback before we?
We just
Oh,
have a few
Yeah,
more.
yeah, we're not, yeah, Eric,
Um,
sorry.
I just
yeah.
have to leave.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was
There are a couple
wrapping.
of more
Over than I
items.
expected.
No, you're fine. There's a couple more items.
No, so in the public hearing section, we did, where we are making no changes to how the public hearings are held, other than that, speakers no longer have to register with the chairperson and staff. So we haven't done that since the pandemic, so we're recommending to remove that from the bylaws. And then the next few sections on designations and application fees are not changing. We are removing this section on administrative action by landmark staff. This does not mean we still would not have ability to review things administratively, but the attorneys have advised us that bylaws should be about how meetings are run and not our internal processes. And this is already spelled out via the ordinances and our design guidelines, so it does not need to be in the bylaws. So we're just proposing to remove that from the bylaws. And that's essentially the major changes that we have proposed with the bylaws. Again, this is just a discussion item now, but your feedback's very important to us. We're thinking, depending on how you're feeling, potentially returning this for the November 19th meeting for adoption, or the second meeting in December, which I think is December 17th. I should know that because I just said that date, but again, just avoiding that December 3rd meeting date. So kind of wanted to get your feedback on if you would like more time to sit with this than 2 weeks, or if you feel comfortable looking at it next meeting for adoption.
Next meeting's fine for me.
Yeah, I agree.
It's great for me.
Okay. I think that's it. for
All right.
Today's meeting.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? No, all right, then I am adjourning our meeting. It is 25 till 4 o'clock, so 3:35. Everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you.